Hello, today we're going to look at the Vlieseline Quilt Along, which is for 2020, and it's to make a simple log cabin block. Now what I want to show you is, this is the quilt if I hold it from a distance. So it's just a nice simple quilt, and the instructions for the quilt are actually on the Vlieseline Facebook page. So if you just pop across to there and like it, you'll be able to see where the instructions are. Now everybody will approach this slightly differently. And I just want to give you some quick hints and tips and go through a step-by-step with you. So what you'll need is the Vlieseline Quilters Square, which is this here. It's 1 centimetre wide, and everything that I'm talking about is available on the Sixpenny Memories website. You need around about 90 centimetres of it, 85 to 90 centimetres of it. The quilt consists of 16 blocks, and the only other thing you'll need are 2-inch strips of fabric, and I'm going to talk you through those as well. We do have some kits available, and they will be available on the Sixpenny Memories site in 3 different colourways. Now, if you're buying a kit, everything's in there. So included in the kit is your wadding, your quick screen square, all of your fabric, your backing and your binding. If you're wanting your own, whilst Vlieseline have given you some instructions or a material requirement list, you do have to be careful how you place your fabrics to get it out the fat quarters, and in fact I think you need slightly more, and I'm going to talk to you about that. So the first thing is, when you are sewing your blocks together, if you start off with, this is your centre square here, and if you then start with a dark square, you have 2 dark fabrics, so you start with a dark square and you'll end up with the light being in the middle. Okay, now this particular one, all of my blocks are identical. So I've started with a dark, but I've kept dark number 1, shall we say, which is the yellow, and dark number 2, which is the peach colour, in the same place. Now this is another one where again I've started with the dark, and this is the one that is on the Vlieseline pattern. This one here, again, can you see, there's your centre square, and I've started with the dark. But I've done 8 blocks where I've started with the red, my dark one, and I've done another 8 blocks where I've started with the blue. And the difference with this one, can you see, you've still got that cream in the middle or the beige in the middle, but can you see your blocks are slightly different. Now the requirements on the Vlieseline page requires you really, to get it out, you need to do 8 of one dark and 8 of the other, otherwise you need slightly more fabric. On this third one that I've done, and these are all the kits that I have on the website, this one, what I've done is I've started with a light, and so there's the centre block, started with a light, but I've kept the darks in exactly the same place. And what happens this time, can you see that the green becomes the predominant colour in the centre of the log cabins? So that's just to show you about the placement of the fabrics, which is really important, how you start off. But let's now start and do a block. So the first thing, as I say, you'll need, is your quick screen square, and here is one I have cut, and the finished block is actually 17, oh, you can see my lovely furry mic there, I'll just move that out of the way, is actually 17 squares by 17 squares. Now these squares are 1 centimetre, so the finished square is 17 by 17. But I've actually cut this about 21 by 21, and that's just to give me some room for manoeuvre. And the first thing that you're going to notice is that on this side you've got a solid blue line, and on the other side you can still see the blue line through, but it doesn't have the line on. Now the fabric is going to go on this side, and the sewing is going to all be done on this side here. So first thing you need to do is to find the centre of your square. So all I did was I folded it in half, folded into quarters, so there I am in quarters there, and then I just grabbed a pencil or a pen, whichever you want to do, and I put a little marker there, and I popped across here. Okay, so I can see where the centre of my grid is, and that just takes the guesswork out of it. In the centre of each of your blocks, it's going to be a 2-inch square. You can alter this, and we are running a competition. The competition closes on the 31st of July 2020. What I'm asking you to do is just to make your own quilt. I'm just getting rid of my fairy mic. I don't know why it's in place for today. For some reason, that's better. Yes, you can do whatever size, you know, centre block you like. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to start with this 2-inch one, which is what is on the instructions. Now I'm popping the block, this first 2-inch square, covering up that drawn square. And the next thing I need to make sure is that there's 7 of the squares. This is on the Vliesline Quilters square, either side of my square. And if I know that, I know I'm not going to fall off the end. So just to show you, I've got 1, 2, in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've actually got 8 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm fine that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is a slightly bigger square. I'm absolutely fine. If you were lopsided in any way, just jiggle it around, but you do need 7 squares around there for all of your fabrics to fit on your finished block. The other thing that's really useful are some pins, and I'm just using the Prim wrist pin cushion, and I've got the Murano glass headed pins, which are part of the Love Magnetic set. My 12-inch wool mat is a godsend. My little Prim iron, which I will have on. And the only other thing that you need is a good pair of sharp scissors. You don't particularly need your rotary cutter, so all I'm going to be using are my Prim scissors. Okay, and everything, just to let you know, I'm so organised these days, is kept in my little Prim Love storage organiser, which is great. So I think I'll start with a dark this time. So I'm going to choose, I've got 2 colours. I've got an aubergine and I have got a green, and these are my 2 darks. And my lights, I've just got, it's a lovely rich cream with different colours that I'm actually using. And these are Moda Kansas Troubles fabrics. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this strip so that the right sides are facing each other and that the edges are matching. And it's actually on one of the drawn lines on the quilter square. I'm then going to pop a pin, and I like to pop a pin where I'm going to start sewing, and I also want to pop a pin where I'm going to finish sewing, so it's there. Now the first line of sewing is going to be along this line here, and we're going to sew 1 square down, 1 grid down on the grid, 1 square on the grid. And the way to mark it, so when you flip it over, is just stick another pin in there. Okay, so that means when I flip this over here, I can see that I'm going to be stitching down this line. The other tip that I would give you is, I'm just going to move you to the sewing machine, is to reduce your stitch length to around about 2, and to use just your basic foot. I'll just move this a little bit closer so you can see. Use your basic foot with the needle in the centre, because you're literally just stitching on the line. So remember, I'm stitching down this line here, and I'm going to pop it in. Now I can move my my position of my foot very close to that first pin, and then I am just going to stitch along that line there. And when I reach the other pin, because I marked the end, I'm going to stop and take that off. Now once I've done that, I'm then going to bring this back over to here. Oops, I'll bring you back over to here, and I'm just going to turn you around, and I'm going to remove the pins, all 3 pins. Basically for this part here, you just need the 3 pins. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this back to that square, and I can see the line, and it's the end of my 2-inch square, and I'm just going to use my scissors, and I am going to cut along that edge there, like that. So can you see that is now in line? I'm then going to use my iron. I'm going to set the stitches, because I still like to set the seam. Flip it open and press it. And this is where having your workstation like this, it's ideal. Now I'm going to choose to put the next one as an aubergine. You can change your fabrics around. This would be a great way of using up your fabrics. Now there's something I just want to show you here. Can you see on this part here, I'm just a little bit shy, sorry, here. I'm just a little bit shy of the drawn line. I'm going to pencil that in just so you can see it. So there is actually the printed line on the Vlieseline square. Can you see? Hang on, I'm in the right place. There's the printed line. Can you see my fabric is slightly short? I'm not going to unpick that because my next stitching line would be one line down. Can you see there? So I'm not going to stress myself about that. Now, I want this fabric to go here. So this is my centre, this is the first one I've put on, and I'm going to pop it along there so you can place it at the bottom, flip it over, and this time, rather than butting it up to the fabric, because remember I was a little bit shy, I'm just going to position that fabric on the drawn line, on the printed line of the Vlieseline square. And once again, I'm popping a pin in where it needs to be at the beginning, at the end. Okay, so that's the beginning, that's the end, because I can see underneath. I'm going to pop a pin in on my the line that I want to sew on here, and then I'm going to come back over to the sewing machine, pop it underneath, and sew. And remember, you're just sewing from that printed line all the way through. Okay, take it away, and this is the first round that's on. Just bring you back round here. Okay, remove the pins, and there is your first round. That's it there, that's your first dogs. Crease it there, get your scissors and cut as close to that line and as straight as you can. But it doesn't matter because it's all going to be covered up ultimately. Set the seam, flip it open and give it a press. Okay, and once you've pressed it, so we've done this one, and then there's this one, and we're going to put our next fabric here, and this is now going to be the light fabric. This is going to be the light side. So remember that traditionally a log cabin would have a series of lights and darks or contrast colours. It doesn't have to be a light and dark. It doesn't have to be as contrasting as this is. If you've started with your selvage, then just trim that off. Okay, just makes it easier for later on. Now, this time I'm going on this line again, remember. I'm just going to pop that onto there. I'm going to put a pin at the beginning, a pin at the end, okay? And this time I'm sewing down this line here, so I'm pinning that line so I can see where it is. Flip it over and stitch again. And actually, I think if I just turn you a little bit, you'll see I'm going to stitch. And this is the first light on going down. So you started with the centre fabric, and then we've put the first fabric was a dark. In my case, the second fabric was a dark. The third fabric was a light. But remember, you can start with whichever one you want. It's entirely up to you. Remove the pins. And the reason, get into the habit of removing this end pin, because otherwise you might get confused a bit later on. Now the quick square screen is not going to come out of your project. It's going to stay in. It's washable. It's a Vlieseline interface, and it's a high quality interfacing. It's not going to disintegrate. It's not going to go like newspaper. It's very, very soft. And to be fair, once you've finished your project, once you've finished your quilt, your layering up will be as normal, and you'll not even notice that you have it in. It's a very, very soft, light interfacing. The wadding that we've used in the project is the Vlieseline 279 cotton mix wadding. And if you were to buy a kit, that's what's included in the kit. I'm just onto my second light here when I'm talking to you. So as I say, the concern about the quick screen, about you having to remove it, you certainly don't have to remove it at all. So can you see how quickly this is coming, removing the pins? Now, when I made the quilts, what I actually did was I got myself into a bit of a routine. I always make one block like this, so I've got it as a good reference, because depending on the placement of your fabrics, you'll need a reference point, and it's always good that you've got your own reference point. So I tend to make one block. But what I was actually doing was I was doing all of the blocks up to this point. So I was actually, it wasn't so much chain piecing, but I was getting myself into a bit of a rhythm, and I didn't particularly have to think about things too much. So I'm just going to go back here. I've done the centre. We did the first fabric, which was my aubergine. Second fabric, which was the aubergine. Third fabric was my first contrast, my light. And then the fourth fabric was another light. And now I'm back onto the dark side. So again, I'm just going to cut this selvage off. This is great for beginners because we're literally sewn by lines. It gets you your confidence. And yes, we are mixing inches with centimetres because this is a centimetre grid. But I've actually cut the strips at 2 inches. And the finished size of the block is about 6.71 inches if you were measuring it. But as I say, when it comes to trimming down, and we will do that, it's 17 squares by 17 squares on the grid. So back to here again. So this is my first dark. And you can see that this comes together very, very quickly. And the whole quilt for this particular project requires 16 of these blocks. Now, can you see I'm folding it to the line? So pop that there, fold that to the line, trim it off. Now, if you have a situation where you have some extra fabric and you see that's peeking through and you think, I don't want a lot of fabric there, you can easily trim that off. But to be fair, I'm just going to leave it. But it's entirely up to you. If there was an excessive amount, you could trim it off, but there isn't. It's fine. So I'm on to my last dark, and I've kept the 3 pins, 1 pin at the beginning, 1 pin at the end. And now, can you see I'm very, very close to this edge? So if I put a pin here, that might impede my sewing. So what I'm going to do is you can do a couple of things. You could either mark it that way, so you can see which line it is that you're sewing. Or alternatively, you could grab yourself a pen and mark the end of it. And what I mean by that is the line that I want to sew is this one here. So I'm going to mark it at the very end. And then I can turn it over and I can just mark it there. And I can see my line. And I did, regardless of how many times I've done this, and you can see I've made 3 quilts. I did it every time. I didn't skip this particular process because it's much easier just to spend a little bit more time prepping these lines before you hit the sewing machine, and that means that you're not unpicking, which, as we all know, we don't particularly care for unpicking. So that is the last dark. Crease that, and I'm not particular at this moment in time about how raggy the edges are going to look. It doesn't bother me because I ultimately will be trimming this down. But don't forget to set that seam each time. Okay, and what I am asking everybody to do is please send some photographs in to me. Let me see your finished quilts, because it's just lovely when you see everybody's fabrics put, you know, some people use different fabrics. And also, you may quilt or embellish it in a completely different way. I haven't got round to quilting mine yet. Now I'm on to my first light, and I've got a similar situation here with the end. So I'm just going to grab my pencil or pen, mark that, know that it's that line I'm doing, pop it back, take it back to the sewing machine, and then I've got a definite line. And particularly, you know, if you get distracted, you might have to leave this for a little while. It's just really good to know what lines you're sewing. Now, if you want to tag us in, if you do put any pictures on social media, please tag in the Vlieseline page and tag in hash Vlieseline Quilt Along 2020. It's hashtag Quilt Along 2020. As I say, pop along to the Vlieseline page as well. And don't forget to tag Sixpenny Memories into anything that you do, because I do love to see the photographs. Now, the competition that I'm running, if you are looking at this and it's before July the 31st, 2020, you basically just need to send me a photograph of your finished quilt or your project, whatever you use this for, and ideally with yourself in it. And we'll have some fabulous prizes, including a Vlieseline queen size 279 wadding. And I've got some fabric prizes and a haberdashery prize from Prim. So it's well worth entering. But if it's after July the 31st, I still love to see your photograph. So please let me have a look. Right, so this is a long, light one. Feels like you're going, this is the longest part you're sewing. And this also, I think, is a great project if you're wanting to get children involved. because it is so simple, and a lot of children certainly are now sewing, which is great. And I think using the quilter square just sets them up to achieve a really lovely finish. It's going to be a nice finish, and this is what we're always looking for, young and old, advanced or beginners sewing, anything that makes the sewing fun, because that's what it should be, fun. I've just got a thread there. So that's my block finished. It's taken me not that long to do it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to trim it down. So there's the finished block, remembering I started with the dark, and all I'm going to use now is a ruler, and I'm just going to grab a board here. I'll just quickly grab a board. Now if you've got a rotating mat, great. If you haven't, I've got the top off of a rotating mat. So I'm going to pop this onto here, and the trimming down is very straightforward. So if you flip it over, you can do one of two things. If you're not confident, just come to the front of your block and just trim it just slightly larger than your block itself, okay? And I'll explain why. Then turn it round, just slightly larger. Doesn't even have to be straight at this point. And actually, if you didn't have a rotary cut and mat, you would be able to do it the other way by using your scissors. Excuse me. So now I've just taken that excess off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and can you see it's not perfectly cut on those lines, but I'm going to count them: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17. I'm spot on. So now I could have done this by scissors if I'd wanted to, if I didn't have a rotary cutter, but I'm going to trim both of those sides now exactly on that line. So that's the 17 squares going from right to left or left to right. So now I need to do this other side, and I've got 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17, and spot on again. That's that lovely there, and I'm just slightly shy on that one. So you could have done this either way. You could have done it from the front, or you could do it from the back. Okay, and there's your finished block. Now when you've done a couple of blocks, you are going to join them right sides together, and when you join them, you once again, you're going to come down one square. Okay, so when they're joined, they're one square down. And if I show you here on the back of here, so this is the one I've done earlier. So can you see the blocks have been put together, right sides together? I've sewn one line down, and then I have opened the seams and just press the seams open, and you'll just put all 16 together. So just tip that up like that, and you'll just put you together in whatever orientation you want. It's entirely up to you how you do it. Okay, so, oops-a-daisy. So that was a very quick demonstration on using the Vliesline Quick Screen Square and following the pattern that is on the Vlieseline Facebook page. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. If you need any equipment, then visit www.6six-penny.com, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.